Chai with Manjula, a show about giving, featuring non-profit organizations, social activists, social entrepreneurs, and philanthropists who are giving back and making a difference.
Chai with Manjula is a show that is a must-see.
Welcome to Chai with Manjula. Violence affects the lives of millions of women worldwide at all socio-economic and educational levels. It cuts across cultural and religious barriers, impeding the rights of women to participate fully in society. Violence against women takes a dismaying variety of forms, from domestic abuse and rape to child marriages and female circumcision and feticide. Our focus today is on domestic violence within the South Asian community in the U.S. Our guest is Peshawaria, who has written 2 books on the subject, titled Lives on the Brink and Immigrant's Dream. Former legal advisor to the Embassy of India in Washington, D.C., Anu is an eminent attorney in California and a social and human rights activist who has founded several nonprofit organizations and won numerous prestigious awards in the U.S. and India for her commitment to community service. She also happens to be a world-class tennis champion and a proud sister of India's top cop, Kiran Bedi. Anu, welcome to Chai with Manjula.
Thank you so much.
As I was reading about you, I learned that you had no plans of settling down in the U.S., but you felt compelled to do so when you saw the plight of so many South Asian women affected by domestic violence and abuse. And you wanted to help. So tell us, what hit you so hard? What was so compelling about their situation?
Actually, I started practicing in 1983, and I was doing cases of dowry deaths in India.
Oh.
And I used to go to the Tihar jail very frequently, and I saw the problems in India. And that's when I thought, if all these women go to America, there will be no problem at all. And I used to come here every year playing tennis, and I used to travel to United States. So when I came here, I thought that they'll be really happy. And I happened to visit a Gurudwara when I found few women sitting in a corner crying and not being able to share with anybody. And I was much younger, but I just said that if I could do something, I'm a lawyer, I can help you in some way. They said that the biggest problem in the United States is that you cannot speak to anybody. That the biggest isolation in the sense that if you speak to somebody, you don't know who may inform the government that they don't have a visa, or they don't have a status to stay, or their husband or their parents, they want to keep it under the carpet. They don't want everybody around in society to find out.
Because of the social stigma.
Right. It's a lot of intimidation, it's a lot of harassment, and a lot of things that they've kept bottled up, and there was no outcome. And that's what I found. And then when I visited the church, Gurudwara, temple, I visited some schools where some Asian women's children were studying. It was the same problem. There was a underbelly of domestic abuse, and there were issues which were not being able to be shared with anybody. And what was the reason was many of them had even spoken about their problems to the press. But after 1 or 2 did speak, it became a big issue, and that particular person was deported from the country.
Oh.
So all those issues, the fear of the law, the fear of a new country, the isolation, the manipulation, made things so bad for them that they became depressed and isolated.
But are we talking only about women who didn't have the legal status here? Or it's prevalent everywhere?
It's prevalent everywhere. Our Indian culture brings up women in such a way that they are told they have to be subjugated to the men. Plus, many of them didn't have work permits to work. They have children now. What do? The children are born U.S. citizens. They cannot leave them and go. Even though they have a green card, they just cannot. They don't understand the laws here. Many a time, those problems of even not having information was enough. And police is not like the way police would be in India. In India, they had made women's cells where women could go and openly talk about their problems, and other women would understand.
Really?
Here going to even a psychologist, many of them would be not Indian at all, so they cannot even understand what is dowry, why women are married off in such a way, why there's a lot of money spent on these things by their parents. So those cultural issues are not understood.
Okay, so the cultural gap also
Cultural
plays a
gap
role.
was there. There was a huge, difference. There were no laws which they knew about. They didn't know that the laws here are completely different. Because here you can divorce without any reason. I mean, it can be just that we don't get along. Whereas in India, you have to prove cruelty. You have to prove desertion to get a divorce. So coming from Indian background, they didn't know these. So I thought it is my duty to train them. I saw this happening here. I was amazed. And I thought that probably God sent me to America just to figure out that maybe I'm needed here. And that's when I thought that all my experience of Indian law, I could bring them to United States and teach these people.
Now, as a lawyer, as an activist, you've come across hundreds, if not thousands, of cases of domestic abuse and violence. So give us some examples. What was the most horrifying or gruesome case or cases that hit you?
When I first moved here, one of the first cases I found, which was amazing, that a particular man had married 3 times. Each time he could go back and get another wife from India without getting a divorce. Because nobody knew that whether he was divorced or not, he would serve the papers on the woman where she was not even living, so she would not be served, and he would get a divorce. And then he kept a daughter from the first marriage, a son from the second marriage, and yet married a 3rd time. A person like that just puts his wife on a plane and says, go to India and have a summer vacation and I'll be joining you, and never goes there. And doesn't file her papers so that she becomes illegal. And when she wants to come to United States, she cannot enter because there's a 10-year bar. So she can never meet her child again. There's no way for these kind of cases. It was very horrifying.
Okay.
This was one of such cases, but there's so many more.
This is one type of abuse. What other kinds of abuses?
Well, once a father came to me and mentioned that his daughter was living happily with her husband, but he wanted to bring his younger daughter. He said he didn't know, so the lawyer told him the only way to bring here is through marriage. So he told his daughter to divorce her husband and get married to his younger daughter. So the girl
Sheer
also agreed.
ignorance.
Yeah, ignorance. So girl also agreed, thinking it's my husband bringing his sister-in-law, and I'll keep quiet. But when he brought the girl, they both started living together. And this girl was divorced. He said, I don't want you back. So the 2 children that she had were now fatherless. So it's a simple mistake, but look at the extent it went through.
Right.
And the father was crying buckets of tears that I'm the one who made this mistake. I'm the one who told my daughter to do this. Look at this big mistake. And this is very much prevalent in the Punjabi community I've seen. Because they think that they can marry 3, 4 times by a divorce and bring them here. No wonder the law changed that they started witnessing fraudulent marriages. And now they've made a green card contingent to 2 years. So if for 2 years your marriage lasts, they'll give you the green card or they don't. So when you play around with a game like this, then the laws will also change. Plus, it's very awful for the families. What does it do to the families?
Right.
Innumerable such kind of cases. Where do I begin? It's emotional abuse, it's physical abuse, lowering of self-esteem. It's unbearable for...
It's hard to believe that these things are actually happening. Give us a sense of how deep-rooted and widespread is the problem of domestic abuse and violence within the South Asian community and in the U.S.
Well, there's a recent study which took place in Boston area, which said 2 out of 5 South Asian women.
Wow.
2 out of 5 is also the UNICEF study, which says 28% of U.S. population has domestic abuse, and 90% of that is immigrant women. Wow. So 90% is a huge statistic.
It is.
And lots of non-profit organizations, women organizations, get up to 500 calls a day of abuse, of problems of their daughters and of their sisters. The brothers talk about their sisters having been kidnapped, some of them in depressions in hospitals, suffering because nobody can take their statement. They cannot, even lead a normal life. So the statistics is really alarming. And that too, the laws of this country keep on changing regularly. So it's very difficult to keep track of what is happening.
Especially for women who are totally isolated and
Absolutely.
not aware of the rules and laws over here.
Yes.
It's
And
hard.
90% is because of how many South Asian women do really complain? Do you know that?
Right.
Very
right,
few, maybe
right.
25%.
Yeah, it's,
So that means 75% more. What kind of numbers are we looking at?
It's hidden.
It's hidden.
It's there, but
it's the
hidden.
underbelly.
Right,
Yes.
right. Now, on the other hand, do you also come across cases of domestic abuse against men?
Yes, I do. Once in a while, there are women who are settled here, who are citizens, U.S. citizens, and they bring guys from India, and they keep them in their house as ghar jawai. And they have lots of issues because the mother-in-law tells them what to do and what not to do. So I've had a couple of males, but looking at the cases, it's 95% is women reporting and 5% is men.
Okay.
So comparatively, it's not a very serious issue. But
Okay.
yes, those 5% could be true. And that is always a case, You have to look at case to case.
Okay. And you have written 2 books on the subject of domestic abuse and violence, Immigrant's Dream and Lives on the Brink, and they are being highly appreciated. So tell us, what was the purpose of your writing these books?
Well, the first book which I wrote was The Immigrant's Dream, was particularly, at that time, it came to my mind that people come with dreams to United States. They come with dreams here when they think that it's going to be wonderful over here, there's going to be no problems because the government will function, everything will happen. But when they undergo domestic violence, isolation, when they can't speak to anybody, when they have no work permit, and if the man throws them out of the house, they cannot work, just like a H1 has a wife who's an H4 and does not have a work permit. So if she has a daughter and if she's thrown out of the house, she cannot even earn. So a woman goes outside and tries to earn money, the police can catch her saying this is unauthorized employment. And that's been happening. Some women opened beauty parlors in their home to cover their costs or to get something. But the police raided their homes and found that. So I wanted to bring to light that what kind of dreams we've come with to America and how they get shattered.
I see.
So I had done so many cases on this. So these are all real life cases which I documented and changed the names so that there is no resemblance to anybody.
Right.
But their stories were so compelling that it could bring people to realize that this could happen to me. So it was a case of a simple nurse who came from India. It was a case of a software engineer, a woman software engineer, and I made these cartoons with men carrying tags in their. So it's $100,000 dowry if I'm a software engineer. It's $200,000 if I'm a doctor. So I saw such kind of cases in India where women were left stranded in India with 13-year-old children. And those children are still being brought up in India. They haven't seen their fathers because they had gone for honeymoon marriages to India.
I see.
So it's like, that's why I wanted to bring Immigrant's Dream.
Right.
And my second book, Lives on the Brink, that's called Bridging the Chasm Between India and United States. I wrote that particularly because I wanted people to have solutions and suggestions to the government.
Okay.
So that's more focused on what are the solutions to the problems, what are the preventative measures you can take, and what kind of suggestions are there to combat this problem.
Tell us about the preventative measures and solutions that you said you offer in the book.
Well, most important is preventative, because before the crime happens, we can do something about it. Now that we know that this problem exists, I have advised the parents of people who send their children here to investigate the spouse's background, which is very vital. The first important thing is to investigate.
Okay.
And secondly, you must know the immigration laws of the country that you're immigrating to, because every country, the laws are different.
So how do they find that out?
That's exactly my solutions to the government, because I want them to hold packages. Well, till the time that they do, the best thing is to research the internet. You can get a lot of information on Google right now.
So internet is one thing.
Internet is one. You can get books like my book on Amazon. You can go to the Government of India website called the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs. You can get a lot of statistics. There were about thousands of women sent back from Canada because of this problem. So once they read about it, they know what kind of things to investigate about their background. All the other things basically is that you must empower the woman to go. She must have at least a professional degree that she could stand on her own feet. That's very, very important. So instead of, doing things like that, we need to make them empowered. And
Right.
secondly, give the woman self-esteem. Don't just marry somebody from shadi.com and just get information about him. Does he look good? You have to network among people to find out what he does in society, what are his mannerisms. Preferably, if you marry a U.S. citizen, you can come here on a fiancé visa for 3 months and live in United States. You can come with your family to visit and see the boy. And so don't rush into just a marriage straight away without verifying.
Okay, so all that information and those warnings
Absolutely.
and recommendations are in these 2 books.
Absolutely. You can get this book on Amazon and you can read about it.
Okay. Now, books are not the only thing. You have published many articles, you have started so many organizations. So tell us about some of the other activities that you are involved with as an activist.
When in India, I used to do work for India Vision Foundation. We had a lot of programs in India in the jails, and I used to go and fight cases for women inside the jail who were in for petty offenses like 100 rupees, but they had no lawyers.
Oh.
And there were some cases of domestic violence, and I used to do pro bono cases in India for India Vision Foundation.
Okay.
And when I came to United States, I started the same branch of India Foundation here.
Okay.
And it's called Seva Legal Aid.
Seva Legal Aid.
Legal aid. Because when I came here, I found the most important thing that was missing was there were a lot of women organizations, but they didn't have lawyers who could help them pro bono. And a lot of lawyers would offer fees on sliding scale, or without money, it was not working.
Okay.
So I thought of starting an organization which provides legal aid to all the women
And
organizations.
it's free?
It's free for the workshops that we do.
Okay.
It does not cost anything. Anybody who's destitute, we file their filings with USCIS free of cost. But it's not a funded organization. It's all from my own money that I have done it. So I'm not sought funding.
Right.
But whatever I can afford, I do it free of cost. And I've done lots of cases of these domestic abuse and violence in Seva. So that's one of the things we do. But in Seva, we have many other projects. So it's like there is a counseling unit, there is Justice for All, there's an E-India verification program.
Oh, that's important.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
The verification program that we set up in India is you can verify about the spouse of the background. It will cost you maybe $20, $30. We spend so much on weddings in India, but you can get a background check done here.
Okay,
in
that's a
United
very
States.
important service.
Yes. So that's called the E-India Verify program.
Okay.
And there's another program I intend to start, which is that you have to pay a very minor sum per month and you get a Justice for All. So innumerable lawyers are available at your beck and call to answer your questions, like an insurance, like a health insurance, you have a legal insurance.
Okay.
So Seva Legal Aid is promoting organization to give you legal aid
I see.
at a minimal cost. And most of them are sponsored, so women don't have to pay for it.
Okay. And also tell us about VAWA. I read about Violence Against Women's Act that you are involved with.
Yes, VAWA particularly is the only act which has been giving these abused women shelter, in the sense that they could stay with their children. When their children are, when their status comes to an end, they can live in the country and be close to their children. So I went particularly to Washington, D.C. and met all the senators, and we tried to tell them about the changes VAWA needs and what reauthorization bill is in the Senate right now.
So you're doing lobbying and advocacy also.
Absolutely, because these laws like fighting for H4 women to get work permits is very important. VAWA bill is very important. The DREAM Act, which we are trying to get in, is just one after another. There are just so many provisions that need to see. Particularly, the family law doesn't speak to the immigration court, which is very vital, because when somebody's divorce takes place, immigration just doesn't care. They feel divorce, so your status has come to an end, you leave the country. They don't care if you have a child, you have any issues here. They say family court is not speaking to immigration court. So I'm trying to bring through this book an awareness that there's so many cases where both departments need to talk to each other.
That's crucial.
Because it's very crucial, because family law, the children abduction across the borders, there's no kidnapping. There's kidnapping if one child is taken by another parent, whereas it should not be kidnapping. But that keeps happening. And you can imagine how much money immigrants spend on litigation here. It all can be handled if two countries were to sit in dialogue. That's exactly what I was trying to bring out, the chasm between India and United States, that both countries need to dialogue on what are the things that they need to bring about, what are the changes they need to bring about.
And so you make some recommendations here
Absolutely.
in the book to the lawmakers.
Absolutely.
Great. And I know you have written articles, I Care articles, and some of them are about divorce and
Yes.
dowry and fake marriages. So
Absolutely.
you are doing some very passionate work here, and no wonder you have won so many awards in India and in the U.S. for your remarkable work. And some of the awards I would like to mention are the Alien of Extraordinary Ability by the INS here, and then Award of Excellence by the State of California, the Hind Ratna, and many, many more. So tell us which one of these awards means most to you? Which one is most special?
Well, when I first came to United States, the most special was when I was awarded from the U.S. government in 2000, and I was given a green card under extraordinary ability.
Okay.
So that was very important to me because when I came as a child, as a tennis player, I was offered the same when I was 13 also.
Oh.
But that time I was very patriotic. I wanted to go back to India. But this time I wanted to live in United States, and they honored me and gave me the extraordinary ability status. So I was very, very happy to belong to United States.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's one other award I read about, Political Watch Award, which is for some famous case that you fought in India. So tell us about that. And what are some of the most interesting or daring cases that you have fought?
Yes, the political award was particularly because of the Uttarakhand statehood case that I fought. And it was against the political people. I mean, to name a few, it was very senior people like Mulayam Singh Yadav and etc. So it was a mass rape that took place in Uttarakhand of about 500 women in the sugarcane field. And I fought for their case. I went to Uttarakhand and took stamp affidavits with their thumbs. And when I brought it back, I found the Indian government backed out of that deal and didn't want to bring this up. So I took up that case and filed it in the Supreme Court and won back a public apology and compensation for all the women. It was very unfortunate incident that took place over there, mass rape. So I toured the whole of UP. At that time, my own sister was so scared of me, even though she was the sitting police commissioner. She didn't want me to go because I heard that newspaper agencies were burned down by political parties, and I was becoming their advocate. So she was very scared of me. When I told her, I said, "Don't worry, if you've done it, I can do it too." So that's how I remember the Uttarakhand case.
Inspiration,
Yeah, absolutely.
your role model, right?
Absolutely.
And you also fought a case against a police commissioner?
Oh, yes. Actually, my sister was the deputy police commissioner, and there were two sitting police commissioners. I filed personal charges against them. And that was on a murder case which I did way back. There were two girls and a man murdered, and the police commissioner got a wrong FIR registered. So I filed defamation case against Delhi police. And that time both of our sisters came in the news a lot because they said one person is challenging the police commissioner, the other is serving the police commissioner. And it was the whole of Delhi police, their leave was sanctioned, was not given. So the whole police had to report to High Court every day while I was fighting that case.
And how old were you at that time?
I must have just started my practice,
Really?
maybe 27 years old.
Okay. So now, Anu, with not much time left, I would like a few quick answers from you to wind up things over here. Tell me, which is the single most important piece of advice that you have for South Asian brides to be coming to the U.S.?
Most important thing is they must verify before they come.
Must
The antecedents.
verify before.
Verify the
And you
man.
have that e-verify
Yes,
service
absolutely.
also that they can go to.
Absolutely.
Okay. Single most important piece of advice for South Asian women in abusive relationships.
If they're in an abusive relationship, they should immediately report the matter. Because the more delay they cause, they'll not be believed later on.
Report to
the police.
the police. Okay. And your advice for families of women in abusive relationships.
They have to be very, very patient with them. They have to really be understanding and understand their problem. So families should be understanding.
And supportive.
Supportive,
Right,
yes.
right. Your advice for communities around the world on the subject of domestic violence.
The communities should network, very important, because they have so many organizations in their area. They must network with each other, how to help women in these abusive situations.
I see. Networking is the key
Networking
here.
is very important.
And your advice for parents about raising empowered daughters.
Oh, if they have to raise empowered daughter, the dowry that they should give them is their education and self-esteem.
Very well put.
Very important, self-esteem and education should be there, not money or dowry.
Okay, very good, very good. Speaking of empowered daughters, I look at you and your sister Kiran Bedi and I see a big parallel here. Kiran towed away Indira Gandhi's car, fought a mob with a stick in her hand, and handled thousands of hardened criminals at the Har jail. And you fought cases against a police commissioner, a minister, and you are a social activist fighting for human rights and women's rights. And both of you are world-class athletes. So my last question for you is, what was so special about your upbringing that made you sisters so strong, so empowered, and so fearless?
You know, if it comes from my heart, it was my father. My father had a great vision and my mother's love for me. So it's my parents doing it together. My father's vision was so strong that if I'm with him today, I can feel I can conquer the world.
Wow, so
because he's the one who sent me to Wimbledon, and I was the first girl to play Wimbledon. He's amazing. He motivates you so much that you think you can do anything in this world.
And you don't have, he didn't have a son, he had 4 daughters.
He had 4 daughters, and he brought us up in such a way that to each of us he told us what we are going to do. What did you do today new? What did you achieve today? Even today he's 92. And if I still go and tell him, Dad, I won this new case. Wonderful. So what are you doing next? He's so motivating.
Wow. So
and
we should bow to him.
It's my father and it's my mother's love, because my mother had boundless love and she worked very hard.
Okay.
So it's my parents, our parents, me and my sister.
Okay, okay, great. Anu, thank you very much for your time and for the wonderful work that you are doing to make a difference. And you certainly are an inspiration to women.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Once again, the books are Immigrant's Dream and Lives on the Brink, and they are available on Amazon and on Anu's website, anuattorney.com. Well, the numbers are staggering and stories horrifying. Domestic violence against women is unfortunately deep-rooted in all cultures and communities worldwide. It is often dismissed as a private matter, but we have to realize that it is a serious violation of human rights and should be condemned and fought in all communities. There are helplines and social services available to women in most U.S. cities. South Asian women in the Bay Area may contact organizations such as Maitri and Narika for help regarding matters of domestic violence and abuse. Thank you all for joining us. You may watch this show again at childwithmanjula.org or YouTube. I look forward to sharing another inspiring story about giving and people making a difference. For Child with Manjula, I'm Manjula Gupta. See you next time.